Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Super Fast Income. Today, with me, a special guest, Patricia Wooster. Patricia, welcome to the show. Can you just introduce yourself to the audience and explain what is your expertise and how you help experts?
Hi, Christian, and hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and have this conversation today. So, my name is Patricia Wooster, and what I do is I help experts and leaders and entrepreneurs, people who have a certain level of earned expertise. I help them take that expertise and write books and create programs and monetize it and go from being like the best kept secret in their industry to somebody that has the authority and is more well known so that they can leverage that into different opportunities.
That's awesome. And it's exactly what we need here. So, what inspired you to start helping experts monetize their expertise?
I think, like most businesses, it sort of evolved. So I was in software sales. And when I left to have kids, I decided I was going to write books. And I ended up with a deal with Simon Schuster. But my entire network were professionals because I had just come from the corporate world. And that was at a time where writing a book was just starting to become accessible to people, like self publishing and hybrid publishing and stuff. And so I had a lot of people picking my brain who wanted to write a book. And I realized they were getting really bad and predatory information, and they were being charged a lot of money to do things. And so somebody actually asked me to coach them. So I wasn't going to do it. Like it just sort of evolved. But then what I realized when I started coaching people, because a lot of people either they were in corporate and they wanted to maybe leave corporate eventually and go into consulting or use their expertise in a little bit of a different way to get a different position or speak or something, is that corporate is so much different than entrepreneurship. So it was once they wrote the book, they didn't really know what to do next to capitalize on it. Like how to create a program, how do we repurpose it into a workshop? How do I create it in speech? What's a funnel? What's a landing page? Like none of those things because they were used to having people at work. And so it was for a long time, it was just sort of on the spot problem solving, helping them problem solve. Like, okay, well, I can help you do that. I know how to do that. And it really wasn't until probably the last 5 years to where I brought it in and really was like, okay, I'm creating packages around this and I'm creating roadmaps so that the book is really, it's just an opportunity opener. It's an exposure thing. It's the what and the why behind what you do. But then everything else is the how, it's the implementation. So that's where the coaching programs, the consulting, the workshops, all those like monetization type things come, but they all the information is the same. You're just using it a little bit differently.
That's awesome. So, how can writing a book transform someone's personal brand or attract more business opportunities?
So a really good book will attract and repel because part of the things that we spend a lot of time and energy on, especially as entrepreneurs, small business owners, is sifting through like bad leads, people that we aren't a great fit for, finding those best clients and things. And so that's one of the first things the book should do. But also, I am somebody who has said over and over again, I don't care about one-to-one book sales on Amazon. I don't really care because you don't have that data. You don't know who bought your book. It's a bunch of disparate random people, right? And so you're making like $3. You're not getting a lot of authority because it's one person in Gary, Indiana, reading it by themselves. So it's more about taking that book and saying, okay, can we sell it in bulk somewhere? Can we, have it be part of an event? Can we, package it, send it as a freebie, right? To open a door to a bigger opportunity. And so that's really one of the things as far as the personal branding. The other is though, for the person who writes the book, it will provide if you don't have clarity now, it will provide absolute clarity. So when you sit down to organize your ideas and your frameworks, and most people have them even though they don't know it. You do something in the same order every time. You walk somebody through the same steps every time. So now in a book, we're going to package it. We're going to name and claim your expertise, your methodology, like they do with Traction or Profit First. And now you have your own repeatable process. And with ChatGPT, now you can feed that in and it can help you create newsletters and social media things and scripts for videos and all those kind of things. So it's also becomes your personal brand infrastructure, your IP that you can use. But it really is that way to put the stake in the ground and say, okay, you want to know what I'm about, you want to know what I represent or who I help or how I help. Here it is. It's all packaged together. So I like it from the end of the person writing the book and what it provides them and for their own personal business and understanding of their personal brand. And then also how you give it to other people where you can sort of infiltrate, so to speak, like an entire company or an event or an organization with a lot of your books and then get everybody kind of moving in the same direction and using your frameworks.
Patricia, you have built different businesses based on best-selling books. Can you share the key steps in turning a book into a business ecosystem?
Yeah, so I'll give you like two examples, like a B2B and a B2C. So at the very simplest, like a B2C. So to be really sort of meta here though, I wrote a book on how to write a book. And it's all my methodology and framework, right? And so inside of that book is a QR code to a free workbook that you can use while you go through that book. Now I have their email address. So I can start the relationship and a conversation. Within that nurturing sequence, eventually they'll be offered a short $47 outline your book in a weekend type program, right? So that's at the smallest level, you're building trust. There's a few like little add-ons and things they can do. From there, there's a bigger program that's actually now available in 27 accredited colleges that takes you from idea to publish to marketing your book. All still digital program, right? But what you can do then when you have a digital program is you can layer on coaching and consulting. So sometimes you can just say, you know what, I just want to sell this for a few $100s, hands off. Justin Welsh does this great with his LinkedIn program. But other times it's like, you know what, I want to run some cohorts, some groups. So I'm going to maybe give them this program, but then I'm going to have one call a week and I'm going to charge $3,000 to $5,000 for a few months and run it that way. So that's like at the simplest funnel. And you can do some paid speaking and some other things. From a B2B perspective, so a few years ago, me and my husband, another business partner, we started a SaaS platform. It started with a book. We had no idea it was going to become a SaaS. So we wrote a book. And then what we did was we turned it into, we did some consulting into companies, kind of poke around with these ideas that we had put in the book. And then we also created a college course. People don't realize how easy that is to do, by the way. But we created a college course. And then we were like, you know what? We can put this into a SaaS platform. Like all of these steps, we can make it interactive. And so it became a platform that increased engagement in the workplace. We sold it to HR companies. And so what it started with was we could send the book as a lead magnet to like an HR professional, CTO or CEO or whoever your contact is. That opens the idea of here's the methodology behind the SaaS, or we're helping people right now create B2B programs and workshops that they're going to training they're going to sell into companies they actually just got laid off from, by the way, but back into companies, right? And so the book is something you just put in bright bubble wrap, you make sure it gets on the right person's desk, you put a little note, and then you can just sort of repurpose it into these different things. And years ago, I remember reading a book from Brendan Burchard and it was called The $1,000,000 Messenger. I mean, I think it came out 10 or 15 years ago. It was like a long time ago, and people really weren't talking about this at the time. And I remember reading that and being like, oh my God, like, and he had the person in the middle, and then he was like, here's a book. And then at the time, people did a lot of paid speaking. And then I think you could have those CD sets, those motivational people would sell the CD sets. But it was like 6 different things. And then he had like a calculator. It was like, if you sell 6 of these and 2 of these and whatever, and then it equals $1,000,000 a year. And it was all the same information, just different products. And I was like, why would I just write a book and like stop there and sell it for $3, And so that's what we're doing, but we're doing it with modern products, like nobody wants a CD set anymore. So to me, it's that ecosystem that's so exciting.
This is so smart. And what are some of the common mistakes experts make when trying to monetize their expertise?
Well, so there's a couple things. If you're somebody that's like an entrepreneurial spirit, which there's a lot of messaging right now, particularly on LinkedIn, like, the only way you have control of your destiny is to be an entrepreneur. Everybody should be an entrepreneur, all that stuff. I think that's bullshit. it's hard to be an entrepreneur, right? To me, it's safer to have a job because, you get benefits, you know what you're getting paid and all those kind of, you have people. So if you have a true entrepreneurial mindset, to me, the biggest problem is too many ideas because that's who you are. You're a visionary and you're like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And so you don't really see something through to the end. And going back to the Justin Welsh, because he has really the simplest, most successful business model I've seen in a long time. He's one person. He may have a BA or something, but he focused really forever on one product that's $97, right? And now he's got like two others that kind of piggyback, but 97, that's it. And just laser in. Now, with somebody who has an entrepreneurial spirit, that's going to seem probably really boring and painful because that's me. I have a million ideas and I've got to like say, stop, stops. I have to continually cut programs out. So that's the biggest thing there is they're doing too many things. And then for somebody coming out of corporate who they really have more of a personality of a corporate person, but maybe they want to change their lifestyle. They want some freedom, or they just like the idea. They have an idea. Theirs is going to be resources of it's so different. And so what happens is they either sign up for a lot of people's programs and they become a program consumer, and I call them certification collectors, and they never really take action. They take lots of notes, but they're so overwhelmed and confused, or they try to do all of these other little things themselves. And so my recommendation always to that person is find one person to listen to really and just see it through to the end for one thing. So it's like pick one social media platform, pick one product you're going to sell, and, pick how you're going to market it, whether it's a webinar or, a landing page or however you're going to challenges or however you're going to do it. But just start like with 3 things and get help. But I think it's the noise, is really what gets in everyone's way in one way or another.
Absolutely. And I think it's more intense when you are on social media and you just see all your network doing great things and inspiring you to do more. So we spoke about so many different venues to create revenue stream, and maybe someone got really excited. So my question would be, when should someone consider creating a cohort, a course, coaching program to support their book? And what's the difference between them?
Yeah. So the first thing is I think when I'm working with clients, we sort of do it in tandem. So my thinking is the simplest model really is if you have a book and it's got 10 chapters and you already know you're going to create a program or something, that becomes almost like 10 modules or 10 training things in itself. So then they really like work really well together. That's not always the case. It doesn't always work out that way, but sometimes you create a program based on one section of the book or something. But so when I'm working with somebody, when we get about halfway through, and I mean, somebody can do this on their own, and they feel like they have momentum writing the book, like it's just sitting down and doing the work, but you know how it's structured, you know what you're doing and stuff. Then we have like a separate document going at the exact same time where we're putting bullets and notes and ideas for the course because your brain is already in whatever that subject's headspace is. And so that's the great time to start having conversations with yourself about what would actually be in the course. And we actually, for our company, we have a custom GPT that we created where our clients actually use it, where they put their chapters in and it actually starts to extract what should be in a program and what should not. But you can kind of play those sort of games with yourself as well. But I also have to say that we take a lot of time writing our books. And so there's so many different ways to repurpose it or relaunch it. So it shouldn't be one of those things. I wrote a book, I threw up on Amazon because I hear this a lot. And this would be like 3 months ago it was published. It didn't do anything. And now I've just kind of like moved on with my life. Well, no, you can relaunch it again, or you can create a program 5 years later with it. I mean, Bob Berg's book, Go Geber, has been around, I think, almost 20 years, and he's still making a career off of it and doing different types of masterminds and programs and groups than what he started doing when it came out, when he was doing mostly speaking. So you can do that at any time. As far as the difference, the easiest way to start being an entrepreneur and to start making money from your book is one-on-one coaching. All you need is a Zoom link. You don't need any fancy anything. You need to figure out a way to get paid, to get payment. And I assume if you wrote your book, you know your shit. So, you need some bullet points and a certain kind of journey you walk them through, but you don't need a lot of like recordings and organization and landing pages and all the things. So I always tell people I would start with one-on-one coaching because that's also a great way to really find out what people need and want, because we have to remember we're the expert. And so we think up here and they're still here. And so we tend to start in the wrong place because we make assumptions. So when you work one-on-one with somebody, you'll start to realize where you actually really need to lean in and provide more information. And then from there, you can go to like small groups. And people hate making that leap. They think, oh, it's not possible that somebody is going to be able to do this in a small group. It's got to be one-on-one. I was that person with book coaching. My groups love each other. I would be punishing them to probably work one-on-one with me now. Like they're the support system and accountability and community. They're doing it together. When we go into cohorts, and there's a lot of misinformation around cohorts are my absolute favorite style, is because with other types of programs, whether you're sending people to do your course, whether you're doing some sort of coaching with them, a lot of times the results aren't as high as you would think. A cohort style, what it is that it should be a small group. Now we see cohorts advertised now that got like 200 people in them. That's really not what a cohort's supposed to be. A cohort is where the promise and the agreement between the client and the coach is you'll get personalized feedback. There'll be a sense of community. There will be a deliverable at the end. So at the end of this, you're going to have this thing, and there's built-in accountability. And so that's really that cohort style. And it's the members who are providing a lot of that results-driven activity because they're doing it in real time. And even during the meetings versus coaching, a lot of times you'll get on a call and you won't point people out and say, well, did you do this? Did you do that? It really doesn't happen a lot of the times. It usually becomes just a general free-for-all Q&A. Whereas a cohort, it's like, okay, now we're moving to step 2. Let's talk about step 2. Let's look at what you did in step 2. And so that's a really, really great model. And a lot of people are moving to that because people are sick of watching videos, especially long videos. They're sick of doing things by themselves, and they want to be in a sense of community, and they want to meet other entrepreneurs because that can be kind of a lonely type of thing. And even corporate people, they want to meet entrepreneurs because they want to see that that they could actually do it. Like they can make that transition.
It makes sense, especially for the supporting group that you get around when you have to do something new and the commitment of the expert.
It's almost like graduate school. It's like, it's what you picture like a graduate school course where there's only a very small group of people in the classroom. It's very that, like, it's kind of, we're all immersed in this one thing together. And so that's what makes it so impactful. But then the other thing too is that people really, really want right now and they'll pay for is if you create some sort of agency where you just do it for them. Like whatever's in your book, if you're teaching something, say, it's landing pages and sales pages and funnels and why you should have one and how they work in case studies, instead of being taught how to do it, so many people are like, can I just pay you to do it? So that's another thing to consider is there an agency model that you could pull out of your book where it's like, okay, they bought into the process, they believe in it, but now they're like, I'd rather just pay somebody else to do it, to set it up and then hand over the keys. So that's something people don't think about as much as they should either.
That's another great opportunity. So it seems that everything starts with positioning yourself and your work in the marketplace. Now, I love your content on LinkedIn, your content top notch. What do you think so many experts struggle to establish themselves as a thought leader?
One of it is, I think, their own resistance. So I wasn't really on social media forever. If you would ask me, I would say, "Ugh, I don't want to be on social media." Particularly on LinkedIn, if we think about it, 99% of people on LinkedIn aren't posting. They're lurking. And so, I've had a lot of opportunities come to me from people that I didn't even know they existed. They've never liked a post. They've never commented. Some of them don't even follow me. Like, and their footprint's like a graveyard. Like, looks like an old resume. So I think there's that. And I also think that LinkedIn is very, and I'm really just speaking to LinkedIn more because I think that's where a lot of the professionals are at this point of a certain age. But there's this fear of embarrassing themselves, or why would anyone care what I have to say? So it's really, so much of it is them is the problem. And so I think you've got to like get over that, because on one hand, nobody's paying attention to you. Nobody cares, especially in the beginning. Nobody's even noticed you're posting. So, and you can delete stuff too. I mean, that's the great thing. You can remove anything you want. But I think it's, if you can first, the way I did it and the way I've done it with some clients is like, let's create 5 to 10 things that you're proud of, posts, articles, newsletters, whatever that is, whatever your format is. Let's create a few things that you're really proud of, videos, and then let's just like test those, like, and see, not make a huge commitment. I tried on Instagram for a while. My business partner is very successful on Instagram, and I tried there, and it's not me. The video, the style of content that you post is not me. I always felt like I was like forcing it. So I think also you have to find, where are you most comfortable? It may not be posts, it could be newsletters, right? It may just be providing industry information. So, all these social media platforms, it's free thought leadership, place to post those kind of things. And then the other thing too is all these industry websites and blogs and everything, they're content hungry. So you can start there. Like, you could open a Medium account for free, post a series of articles, and then use that body of work to present, to pitch to Forbes, and Harvard Business Review takes articles, all these different places, and say, here's some examples of what I've done. But I think it's like, you've got to put some energy and time into it. That's the only way really to get started.
You are very straightforward. I can get this feeling from your post, this interview. I would like to know, what's one piece of advice that you often give to your clients that goes against popular wisdom?
Ooh, wow, that's a good one. I think that, gosh, I feel like I'm always telling them things they don't want to hear. I think the biggest thing is that they have, when it comes to books, they've Googled how to launch a book, how to market a book. They come in with a lot of ideas of what they think they want. And the first thing I have to sort of break them from is the worrying about volume of sales. But I feel this way about coaching and things too, is volume doesn't always translate. Volume translates for somebody like Sahil Bloom, Cody Sanchez, people with really big audiences. If you don't have a really big audience, it always comes down to leverage. The very first thing we do is write a list of, where are we going to sell in bulk? Because when I had my deal with Simon Schuster, I had no following. Then my marketing person quit a week before the book came out. And I was like, oh shit. So what ended up happening is I sold 4,000 books to one organization through email. And that really changed my idea of how we sell books. And it's looking at opportunities to sell many copies to one person or one organization. And so I think we have to look at ways of, rectifying with ourselves. Not all of us are going to be influencers. Not all of us are going to have millions of followers. Not all of us should even care about that. There's other avenues to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And it's the same with the coaching, is same thing. You don't have to be somebody that hosts a weekly webinar. You don't have to be hosting Russell Brunson challenges or running Facebook ads. How many people do we really need? Well, I know I need 24 clients a year. That's it. That's all I need is 24 clients. So you could just do the math on that. It's not a lot. So I just need to, once you know that number, you just target based on that number instead of worrying about all of the noise and things around you. And so I think that's usually with entrepreneurs, because they've been following big Russell Brunson, big Alex Hormozy is removing a lot of that, what they've learned, and really get a pen and paper and really figure out, like, what do you actually need, and start from there.
You work with a lot of experts. How do you see the world of thought leadership evolving the next few years?
There's so much out there about, is AI going to take over, and does anybody going to care about books or social media content or any of those kind of things because people are using these tools. And my prediction is this is the best opportunity for emerging voices to come about for a couple reasons. One is you have the really big people like Tony Robbins, Brendon Burchard, Mel Robbins, I mean, any of them really. And what they've done is they've been talking. Now, Mel Robbins just came out with a book, but they've been talking about the same thought leadership for years and years and years. And now they're not interacting with their brand online. It's never them. They put up a post, they have less comments and interaction than I have on my posts a lot of times. It's just somebody just repurposed their content all over the place, but there's no conversation happening or whatever. And it's the same content they've been talking about for years that has been repurposed. So there's that. So people are ready for some new people. That's why Sahil just, I mean, his is like a masterclass in a book launch and seeding an audience and being from somebody that so many people had no idea who he was to like straight up the New York Times bestseller list. He was just seeding in his ideas. Cody Sanchez, the same thing. I mean, she wasn't known as some author, but she launched a big program on the back end of her book because she saw like, oh my God, she took him for the journey. So there's that. But there's also what I kept calling quiet authority. And it's those people that just show up somewhere, mine's on LinkedIn, on some platform consistently, sharing their unique perspective and ideas, who are just slowly building this audience and having these conversations with people that are a little bit different. And so they may be slower to get momentum, but they're building a really loyal following. And the way you stand out right now is ChatGPT cannot manufacture your story. So sharing your story, your journey, and being very specific. Also taking people along for the ride. So if you're building a business, talk about it. Talk about the challenges. Talk about the thing you screwed up. Talk about the win. Like take people with you, because then, like Sahil, I mean, now he had a big audience, but that just might be somebody the audience knows. When he launched, everybody felt like they were part of his book already because they had been with him through that journey. So it's stories and experiences. And then also the other thing is AI cannot manufacture emotion. So vulnerability, even happiness, and really tying in your thought leadership into emotions and changing emotions. Like you can't manufacture a Brene Brown. You just can't. I mean, AI bot can't, because how she physically shows up on videos is very congruent with how her books show up. She has college programs, how they show up. It's very congruent. It just can't be manufactured. But if you're going to stick to straight content that most of us, personal development, business books that most of us absorbed for the last 20 years, ChatGPT can write those now. How to start a business. They can write it, right? How to do anything, fill in the blank. How to win friends and influence people. Yes. But the difference is going to be threading a story through. And I worked with a guy who sold his home service business, and he had a carpet restoration company, right? He wrote a book, and every chapter starts with a story of something he screwed up when he was building his business, like epically bad. And then how he walked himself through learning how to do it the right way. That book can't be manufactured by anyone but him, only him. And when he goes on the road with that book and speaks at industry events and hosts, they love him. They feel like they know him. I mean, they were like, when they're reading his story in the book, like, of course that happened, And so that's where we really need to look at thought leadership, is remove the perfectionism that used to come with it and how generic it was and tactical, and bring ourselves into it. So there's a little memoirish kind of, that's blended into all this thought leadership now.
Maybe new generations are more in line with this because they're building in public. I think for more established businesses, it's quite frightening to go back and say, we are screwing and you are dealing with our business.
Yep. Yep. And the way they do that is how they ease into that is they start with case studies, success stories they've had with clients, and you can make those people anonymous. You can change their gender and a little bit about them and stuff and explain from here to there type stories to get sort of comfortable with it. And it doesn't always have to be like a screw up. It could be something that's more giving somebody a look at your life. So I was coaching somebody yesterday and he's writing a book and he's launching a podcast and he's going to do the typical stuff in social media where he shares the tips and some clips of him interacting with the person on the podcast. But other than that, he really hasn't been on social media. But he's a successful business person who also has really invested time in his health and wellness and self-care. And I was like, what do you do every day? Do you go to the gym every day? You take a walk every day? What do you do in that front? He's like, well, I take a walk every day. I'm like, film some content of you on the walk talking about how you're taking a break and why that's important to you. So that's still like a personal story, but he doesn't have to get like vulnerable about it or share like, you know what I mean? Things he's uncomfortable sharing, but it creates a three-dimensional person that people will then like build that like, know, and trust with and connect with. And so I think that's really important is to figure out what your comfort level is, but they have to see something. And I'm in a program right now where there was somebody who approached me and they want a traditional book deal and they've got a ton of followers on LinkedIn, but the only place you're going to see their face is in that little dime-sized picture that you have with your LinkedIn profile. None of their content ever has one picture of them. It's very top of funnel, generic, safe, that captures a lot of people. And what I said is you'll never get a traditional book deal. I don't care how many followers you have until somebody can attach the face to the thought leadership. Like you're going to have to come out in front of your content at some point, some videos or pictures or something at some point. And so I think that's what people really want is they want to know who they're following.
Now on LinkedIn, create a publish a carousel. It could be a video, like very well edited. But then in the comments, they just show picture, selfie, anything they do at that time, and I love it. It just gives that 3 dimension, right? So I said, why not do the same? And I'm telling you, I did it, but I felt so awkward. Oh my goodness, that's silly. But to come back to your point, it's difficult to show even part of ourselves that we are not being trained for on social media because obviously we have been exposed to a different thinking of showing up on social media or presenting your business, your professionality. So that's very interesting.
Well,
But Patricia, you emphasize the importance of creating a signature story and a methodology. How to start?
they're two different things. So like a methodology or a framework, I would look at like one, what do people come to me for? As long as it's something you want to keep doing, because sometimes I think people come to us for things and we're like, oh, I'm so sick of that. But if it's something that you're interested in, is what do they come? And then now you could just record yourself coaching somebody or walking them through it. And then, AI will you can say, create a framework for this. But like, what is that repeatable process that you do? And it was even like today, I was writing an SOP for something and I was like, oh, wow, I do the same thing every time. Like, I thought I was really going to have to think about it. And I was like, God, I do the same thing every time. And I didn't even realize it. I'm living the SOP without it being written down. So that's one thing I would look at. And then I would think about like, what's a cool name? How, you want to name and claim it. Like, what is that thing? Because people will remember that. They'll remember that you have the EOS thing or traction or profit first. I mean, I walked into the bank one day, not even thinking. I was like, I need to set up my profit first accounts. And they're like, what? And I was so used to I was so immersed in it. I was, quoting frameworks and they're like, what are you talking about? But so that's one. The signature story, I think, has to be people would rather have your story than your company's story. But if you're a big enough company, like a North Face did it, and Tom's Shoes, and, why charity or why the environment or why this is important to them, then that's great. But I would say that if you first created a story around your why are you doing this in particular? Not your why for living or your why for your family values or all that, because that gets too broad. But like, why are you doing this like one thing right now? And you should be able to say it in like a sentence, and then there should be a story behind it. So it's like, the reason I do this is because I'll say I read the right book at the right time. And so it's the right book to the right person at the right time can change somebody's life. And that happened to me. And then I was like, you know what? I want to help other people who are kind of that best kept secret that have something that could help somebody. I want to help them bring that to light. Now, there's a personal story behind that, but I don't always have to use it, but it does, it's great on a panel. It's great, in the opening of a book or when I'm talking in front of a group or something like that. But I think also you have to understand why you're doing it. Because it's a lot of work. Why are you doing it? It can't just be for money because there's a gazillion ways you can make money. And that's just not going to connect with anyone either. People understand. So, it goes back to that book, Start With Why, right? It's so simple, but it's so true.
What's the biggest misconception about writing a book and becoming a recognized expert?
Well, depends who you ask. I think that one, that traditionally published books are the only way and that they're the only way you're going to get any attention or authority. Because there's actually a ton of former New York Times bestselling authors who chose to self-publish now because they have the control over their work. They can get things to market faster and they make more money. So it's really more about how you package it. So I've always said part of my framework is we package books to traditional publishing standards. I can walk into Barnes and Noble with one of my books or my author's books, one of the local ones, and ask the manager to carry it in the store. And they're most likely going to say yes, because it's packaged just like all the other books there. So I think that's a big misconception. And a lot of people use it as an excuse not to write their book. They'll say, oh, I'm building an audience because I want a traditional book deal, or I'm working on the proposal, or I haven't decided who I want to publish my book. Like, good luck with that thinking, So I hear it a lot. I'm serious, you laugh, but I do. And so I think that's a big one. And I also think that people have this idea that if they put it on Amazon, it will sell. And there's millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of books on Amazon. It won't sell. So you do have to put as much time and effort, if not more, laying the groundwork of getting the book into people's hands.
Can you share with us some strategies to make these effective?
Well, back to the bulk sales always is, and look at people who have a checklist. So people that have a checklist of tasks that they have to get done in order for them to complete their job. So what I mean by this is every company, big company, has like kickoffs, annual kickoffs, and they're big and they spend millions of dollars on them. There is somebody that is sitting with a notebook and they have a list of, they've got to find speakers and they've got to have workshops, industry events, same thing. There's an event planner somewhere that part of theirs is swag, it's speakers, it's workshops, like all kinds of stuff. Nobody ever contacts those people. It blows my mind. They contact the C-suite in the company. They're not involved in the event at all. They're writing the check. That's it. They're going to show up. So find the event planners, find the people with the checklist. Same with if you write anything that can get into a school, which that could be college, high school, trade school, whatever. There are people, all they do is purchase books. If you approach them, you just made their life easier. They're not having to search and figure out what to order. Also, the other thing too is you can go and go submit your book for RFPs. So you can go fill out the paperwork for different state sites so that the government, education, anyone that receives federal funds, that they can order your book without permission. So you can fill out the documentation for that and you can contact people and say, I've already done the work. Like, I'm an approved vendor. I know you're going to be doing leadership training in your organization this year. I've got a book that is great for leadership. I also do a workshop. Like, make somebody's job easy, then you don't have all that resistance. So that's one way. And then the other is, you can do some of these traditional things where, have book launch parties, but film everything. If it's not online, it didn't happen. If somebody can't see a video or a picture, it did not exist. So you want to make sure that you document all of these things along the way too.
That's a very great advice. For those who are overwhelmed with shiny objects and free advice, how do you recommend cutting through the noise?
Well, I think you have to pick one thing. What I ask people when I get on the phone with them is what do you need more? Do you need authority more, like people to know who the hell you are? Or do you need money more? Like, did you just lose your job? Right. And so if they need money more, then we need to create a program. We need to get them monetized as quickly as possible. If they've got a great job or they've got the money or whatever, but nobody knows about the thing that they have, then we start with something like a book. We start by building their thought leadership and making it available to people. And so I think you have to get really clear about what do you personally need and what are you personally interested in, and pick one thing. But you don't need the perfect CRM, the perfect website, the perfect logo, all of that extra stuff. I mean, we built our SaaS platform. We went through 2 rounds of funding, no logo. Our website was like, meh. I mean, CRM was kind of a duct tape. Like there was a lot of stuff duct tape behind the scenes because you first need to have an MVP. Create a minimum viable product before it's perfect, get it out there. You can do it as a beta, charge less money, test it, iterate it based on the feedback, and then spend more time polishing it and just keep doing that. But people will spend years tweaking things that they don't even know if anybody wants. They haven't made it available.
Patricia, if you have to start from scratch today, what would you focus on first to build an ecosystem based on your expertise?
I feel like I do this I've done this quite often. So I usually start with an idea and I'll throw the idea together in like a lead magnet, in a freebie of some sort. I won't spend a ton of time on it, but I'll have like really the core of the idea there and try to get it in front of many hands as possible and see kind of what that feedback is, while at the same time offering one-on-one coaching to get that interaction going. The other thing is that if you're really confident in what you do, so say you're a sales trainer in corporate and now you're going to be a consultant and you want to be hired by corporations to come in and do sales training or something, you're really super confident, then what I would do is I would leverage other people's audiences. So I would contact people that already have communities and offer to do a free training to their group, because it's really like having somebody else organize your webinar for you. Even if there's not like a sales thing at the end of it, if they like you, they will contact you. But it gets you in front of a lot of people and it allows you to leverage the work somebody else has done to build their audience, because likely you don't have one. You can even do that local networking groups. They let people come and present. Like I'm presenting to a number of networking groups in this next 12 months. I presented to YPO a couple months ago. So to me, that's the fastest way to kind of get liftoff, is not building everything and not building everything yourself as far as the communities go.
So leveraging other people's community or network and testing your idea as fast as you can so you can understand if it's worth to continue and improve it or just move to the next one.
Yep, move on. People will always, I mean, that's the amazing thing about people. They'll always tell you what they need and what they want. So you may miss the mark slightly, right? And that's what happened to us, me and my business partner, where we made it official this last March, is, we had like a 12-month plan. And 6 months in, somebody was like, well, can you help me create a cohort? We weren't going to roll that out for another 6 to 9 months. So we were like, sure, that's what because then I asked around, does anybody else want this? And we had 3 other people that were like, well, I need that too. So we were like, okay, we'll throw it together and we'll get it going and offer a lower price, and they get more hands-on with us than probably somebody will get later. And it's a win-win for everyone. So you also got to like not be so married to what you're trying to roll out and keep your ears open to what people actually want.
That is smart. Patricia, are there any questions I should have asked you to help our listeners to build a business ecosystem around their expertise, but I haven't asked you yet?
Everyone always has a fear around something. It could be speaking, could be posting on social media, it could be video or whatever. And I will say, like, I'm an introvert. I was the person that used to like run to the corner with my cell phone at a networking event or say no to speaking or doing. Said no. I spent a lot of time spending no. And I've never regretted saying yes, but I've regretted a lot of the no's. And usually what you want is on the other side of that fear. And so I really think people have to make the connection about what they say they want and what they're willing to do. And so that's the biggest mindset advice that I would give to somebody, because it's all uncomfortable. I think a lot of being an entrepreneur is uncomfortable. And so it's just a matter of like who's willing to be the most consistent. So stay in the game the longest, and who's willing to sort of push through fear and just do it. So I guess that's probably a great place to wrap.
Awesome. How can our listeners keep following your journey and learn more about what you do?
So I'm on LinkedIn every day, Patricia Wooster, and then also through the website, patriciawooster.com.
Thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.